rhyme.
Hope your new year is splendid!
This is a clip from Danny Phantom's Christmas special. In the episode, Danny meets a ghost who is set on destroying Christmas and punishing Danny. To do this, he begins to write a Christmas poem, one that Danny is at the mercy of. As he writes, Danny's story unfolds, and we hear that ghost narrate the story in rhyme. The same year this episode is released, the first trailer for Stranger Than Fiction released, a movie starring Will Ferrell in which the character is at the mercy of a narrator who is writing a story starring Will. The exact same reality as Danny Phantom's Christmas episode. See, it's easy to attach a negative connotation to words like trope or cliche, but Danny Phantom is, from the ground up, built on cliche, built on tropes, and in a way, the show is great because of it. Danny Phantom knew how to be the best version of things we've seen before, and it was awesome.
Look at you. You're too excited to speak. So I'll just go on speaking.
It starts with Danny Fenton himself. Danny is your typical hero protagonist, but played heavily into the archetypical animated vigilante. His identity is a secret, it has to be, because of course, his parents are ghost hunters and Danny is a ghost. His sister is never on his side because, well, that's how these things go, but one day she'll come around. And because of Danny's ghostly affliction, he only fits in with his two best friends who help him in the real world with his ghostly duties, and of course, Danny and his female best friend play will they won't they for most of the series. Danny even has his own version of going Super Saiyan or the Sailor Moon transformation.
I'm going ghost!
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just a cliche. There's really no way around that. But yet, the series still elevates almost all of those other cliches. Danny's ghost hunter parents, yeah, they're zany and absurd, but they're also not just there for laughs. They drive the plot consistently. They frame Danny's struggles and relationships. They are good characters. And throughout the series, the question of how they'd react to Danny's identity is an interesting one, given that there's more to them than just ghost catching. They're not, like in Fairly Odd Parents, funny talking heads exclusively. Danny's sister actually sees some growth, eventually becoming a real ally for Danny in his ghostly pursuits, developing real nuance. And that will they won't they between Danny and Sam, well, that relationship is well written enough that you actually care, that the idea of them finally will theying matters. These are cliches done better, specifically from a protagonist's point of view. And the same goes for the show's action side.
Return to me my sword so my reign of terror can begin anew.
I can bring the sword back by midnight, but the Reign of Terror is kind of a deal breaker.
The show's conflict accomplishes something similar. Danny, the kid, struggles with your typical coming-of-age fare. He has difficulty socially with girls, he doesn't always fit in, as already mentioned, he doesn't always agree with his parents, and school still sucks. And this is where most shows would stop. Danny would grow slowly throughout the show, overcome these very small, normal struggles, and be all the better for it. Instead, the show very smartly parlays those problems into ghostly ones, into new power that Danny has to learn to use to overcome his foes, and his problems that are a bit more normal. He doesn't just grow as a kid, he grows as a ghost simultaneously, and we see that growth manifest physically in the form of those powers.
Is this a new ghost power?
Powers we can see, growth we can see, and powers that, by the way, are serialized throughout the series. They exist episode to episode. The growth remains. And well, those ghost problems are handled similarly. Remember Chip Skylark of the Fairly Odd Parents? Yep, well, he's here as well, except now he's a girl and a villain. One of Danny's greatest foes, a villainous version of himself, as to be expected. Here is Fright Night, a medieval knight that wants to oppress and control everything and makes declarations in rhyme. And of course, the show premieres with an episode about an evil lunch lady. You've almost certainly seen all of these villains, these very ubiquitous tropes in other places. But again, it's about how they're handled, how well they're done. She is awesome, arguably as memorable as any villain in a Nick animated show outside of Avatar. Danny's battle with his future self is a relatively complex character study hidden away in bright ghostly colors. Fright Night is genuinely funny, and that evil lunch lady is relatably horrifying. None of these characters exist for the sake of being unoriginal. Instead, Danny's foes are all, almost always, some of the best versions of these cliches put to screen. They're not cliche for cliché's sake, and in their variety, whether they're terrifying, funny, surprisingly thought-provoking, they are interesting. But all of this only works if the show gets one very specific thing right.
Get behind me!
Wow, I feel safe.
Danny Phantom embodies two words perfectly: self-aware. Danny Phantom is as self-aware as a show of its kind can be, and because of that, and because the writers play on that, all of its tropiness, its cliche, plays humorously, sometimes even bordering on satire. It knows it's tropey. It knows that evil lunch lady is the same evil lunch lady that Codename Kids Next Door played with on Cartoon Network. It knows its fight with future Danny is something that science fiction has presented to its audience a dozen times over the previous 4 decades. And it knows Scooby-Doo has seen its fare of oppressive nights. And because of that self-awareness, it can be better and, importantly, funnier than some of those other things. Danny's ghostly parental problem is amped up to absurdity, written as a ridiculous obsession that knows no bounds, and so Danny reacts to that accordingly. It's eye-rolling. It isn't, oh my god, what will I do? It's relatably, why are my parents like this? When Danny starts body hopping in a season 1 episode, it isn't to discover what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes, to get perspective on the outside. Well, not really. Instead, the entire premise is a vehicle for one of the show's funniest episodes. Joke after joke after joke. By identifying how the show's tropes normally play out within the context of the writing process, the writers are able to find ways to play with them instead of just representing them or recreating them. Danny Phantom writers clearly believe that you can be original without building a wholly new structure. You can make something great by building on top of a structure that's already been built, and nowhere does all of this coalesce more clearly than that aforementioned Christmas special.
Santa Claus is a ho-ho-hoax.
Christmas episodes, or specials, are ripe for tropes. And I think Danny Phantom's self-aware take on those tropes makes for something special here. Everything, and I mean everything in the Christmas episode is a cliche. Danny is the curmudgeonly Scrooge, the Christmas detractor that must learn and understand the meaning of Christmas before his problems can be solved. But here, Danny knows this. Throughout the entire episode, he hates Christmas, the malls, the shopping, the sounds, and he knows that he's supposed to love it. He knows his villain wants him to understand it, he just doesn't care. The ghost that narrates and controls his story, the one trying to teach Danny a lesson? Yeah, Danny also knows that this trope is flat out ridiculous and absurd. He himself points it out as a trope, and his resistance and mocking of the idea is consistently funny. And his parents' insistence on catching Santa creates situational comedy that sure is cliche, while Santa is fake, haha, but is also super well written and again, incredibly humorous. The episode is a ghostly Christmas carol. It knows that, it plays with that, and it's great regardless. It may not be the best episode in the series run, but it is a microcosm of what's so special about the show to begin with. Danny Phantom isn't this wholly original animated paranormal sci-fi tale. It isn't that by design. The show only ran for 3 seasons, which is criminal considering just how much potential this universe had to be explored. How much more there was to see. Danny Phantom is, in my opinion, one of Nick's best shows. A show that understood its audience and most importantly, understood its identity better than so many other animated products. And because of that, I think the show is a great lesson for anyone with an idea, a story to tell. It's great to focus on being the most original thing you can conjure up. Originality is never a bad thing. But it's also worth remembering that ideas are meant to be played with. They're not meant to exist in isolation, they're meant to be explored. Sometimes being original doesn't mean getting there first, it means doing things differently, doing things better. And nowhere is that clearer than here.
I'm going, go!